In 1994, a hedge fund in Long Island sealed its best-performing fund from outside investors. And in the 31 years since, not one regulator, rival firm, or academic paper has published a complete explanation for how it compounded at 66% annually. Something lives inside that building. The people who know it have agreed quietly not to write it down. The fund is called Medallion. The firm is Renaissance Technologies. And before you dismiss this as a story about lucky people, know that Medallion returned 80% in 2008, the year the global financial system nearly collapsed. It has never had a losing year. That is not a streak. That is a rule. Renaissance Technologies was founded in 1982 by a mathematician named James Simons, not a banker, a codebreaker who worked for the NSA. He hired physicists, linguists, and statisticians. He explicitly refused to hire Wall Street veterans. He said the training would get in the way. By 1993, Medallion was the highest returning fund on record. Then Simons did something almost no one does when something is working. He gave outside investors their money back, locked the fund to employees only, kept the returns inside the building. That decision is the first clue, because here is the rule they follow, not the algorithm, not the signals, the rule underneath all of it. The managers at the very top, the ones who have outperformed for decades, not years, do not invest the way they tell you to invest. They run two completely separate systems. One system handles outside money. It chases return, takes on risk, and charges 2% annually plus 20% of every gain. That is the business. The other system handles their own money. And it does something so counterintuitive that most people reject it immediately. It limits. Hard. No single position in their personal wealth ever exceeds 5% of total holdings. Not 5% of a portfolio. 5% of total net worth. The rest sits in instruments so deliberately boring, short-duration bonds, liquid reserves, nothing exciting that a financial advisor would be embarrassed to recommend them. They bet aggressively for you. They limit catastrophically for themselves. The official explanation when anyone asks is that this is just prudent risk management. Standard practice, diversification, and that answer should bother you. If hard position limits and catastrophic loss avoidance were truly standard practice, if it were that simple and that widely followed, then the wealth gap between the top 1% of earners and everyone else would not have widened every single decade since 1980. The median American retirement account holds less than $87,000. Medallion's employees have doubled their personal wealth approximately every 2 years. Standard practice does not produce that gap. Something else does. Go back to 1994, the year Simons locked the door. This is the rule he locked inside with him. The rule has a second half, and the second half is the one they never publish. The managers who have sustained 30-year records, not 5 years, 30, share one specific behavior. They do not rebalance on a schedule. They do not rebalance when they feel confident. They rebalance when volatility spikes, not after it spikes, during it. When headlines are screaming collapse and ordinary investors are moving money to cash, that is the exact moment these managers execute their transfers. Into assets that have dropped, away from assets that have not moved yet, automatically, by rule. Now here is what makes this almost impossible to replicate. The rule only executes correctly if the position limits were already in place before the crisis arrived. If you capped every holding at 5% when times were calm, when there was nothing to fear, then a volatility spike forces an automatic rebalance into fallen assets. The math does it. The emotion has already been removed. You cannot copy this rule during a crash. You had to build the structure before one was needed. In 2008, most American investors lost between 30 and 40%. Medallion returned 80%, not because they predicted the crash, because their structure, built years earlier, executed automatically the moment panic set in. This is why the wealth gap compounds, not because hedge fund managers have better information, not because they are smarter. Because they built a behavioral structure around their money before any crisis existed, and that structure did the work while everyone else was reacting. The rule is not classified. It has been documented in academic literature since at least the 1950s. It sits in SEC filings, in footnotes, in papers that never reach a classroom. You are told to grow your money. The rule says protect it first, limit first, then grow. Every advertisement, every financial influencer, every retirement seminar teaches the opposite sequence. So here is the question Renaissance technologies never answered publicly. If this rule is simple enough to explain in 5 minutes, if it has been in the academic record for 70 years, then why is it absent from every required finance course at every university in the country? Who decided that part stays out of the curriculum? And what exactly are they protecting by keeping it there?